Imagine for just a second, you're sitting in your next assistant principal interview, but today you brought more than just your resume. Today, you've also brought a set of powerful stories and narratives that you can share that showcase not just your skills, but also who you are as a human being. In today's episode, we're going to show you 3 powerful stories that you can share during your next interview. Grab a pen, a piece of paper, get ready to take some notes because we're starting right now. Hey everybody, Gordon Amerson here, Superintendent of Schools and Gallup Certified Strengths Coach. And on this channel, we showcase and leverage my experience from classroom teacher to school district superintendent to help you go further faster in your educational journey and your educational leadership. So if this is your first time with us, don't forget to hit that subscribe button as well as the bell notification so you don't miss any cool updates or any of our latest and newest episodes. So at this point in my career, I've done hundreds, if not thousands, of interviews, whether it be interviewing myself for a position or it be me sitting as a director of HR, an assistant superintendent of HR, even as a superintendent, interviewing candidates who want to join the profession, who want to become teachers or administrators, principals, assistant superintendents, you name it. I've seen the good, I've seen the bad, I've seen the ugly. But what I can tell you time and time again is there is a powerful strategy that you need to be incorporating into your interviews, because it goes above and beyond just the hard technical skills that it takes to be able to do these jobs and do these jobs well. I talk more and more with folks about what does it take to be a really good administrator? What does it take to be a really good leader? And it goes beyond just the hard skills. Do you know how to crunch data? Do you know how to lead professional development? Do you know how to deal with the trials and tribulations of running a school site or leading or being in front of a classroom full of students? Like, there's a set of technical skills that you have to have. But one of the things that's really important is our ability to connect with people on a human level. As a leader, you have to be able to connect with people on a human level. And one of the ways you do that in the context of the interview is the ability to not only showcase those technical skills, but also your soft side, your soft skills, who you are as a human being, what you value, what you've been through, what you've known, what you've experienced, what you bring to the table is a really, really important skill. And we do that in the context of the interview by sharing a story, sharing a series of stories. Now, I want to talk a little bit today in this episode about 3 different strategies or 3 different types of stories that you might be able to tell. And in previous videos, and we'll link those in the description as well as we'll hang a card here. But in previous videos, I've talked about how to use a personal story in the context of closing your interview. Like, how do you leave the committee? How do you leave the panel with something to remember you by? And the personal story is one of those ways. So we wanted to expand on that concept today because it doesn't just have to be used at the end of an interview. It can be used throughout the interview. You can contextualize in putting personal stories and personal experiences into your technical question responses as well. So without further ado, let's jump right in and we're going to start to talk about 3 strategies that you can use to tell personal stories within your interview. Let's get started. All right, let's talk about personal story number 1 that you could use in an assistant principal interview. And I think one of the first types of stories that you want to tell, whether it be at the end of the interview to kind of capture everything about you as a leader, or you weave it into some of the scenario-based questions. But I think one story or a type of story you can always tell is that of a story of how you led a team toward success. So you can share how you took a team after doing data analysis and after clearly understanding what it was that the school needed, how you took them systematically through the process of leading towards success, and then how you learned of that success. Not only that, but how you celebrated that success, who were the key players that helped you be successful. Because remember, as we tell these stories become our successes because of not only what we did as individuals, but who we also empowered to be leaders alongside of us. Because you can only lead a team towards success if you have a team. If you're an individual leader and you're just leading on your own, you're not empowering, you're not engaging, you're not collaborating, you're not really leading a team. You might be dictating to a team, but that has a finite timeline. So think about, how do you capture stories that showcase your ability to lead a team through success, and really spend time sharing with folks the hearts, the minds, and the mindsets that you shifted, that you changed, how you emotionally connected with your team, how you emotionally connected with whatever the purpose was that you were leading, that you were driving towards, and then how that success was celebrated. That's a really, really important piece, because every interview panel I sit on, if somebody is sharing and showcasing how they succeeded and how they led a team towards success, I want to know that they know how to celebrate. I want to know that they know how to articulate that they've been successful, and they share that back out with people, so that way it lifts us all up. It engages us. It creates connections. It creates deeper relationships. So think about ways to capture a personal story about how you've led boldly, courageously towards the success of a team, and then being able to bring that down to a humanistic level. That's going to be a really, really strong strategy, and one that you can use throughout your interview to be able to showcase who you are and highlight who you are as a leader. All right, let's talk about personal story number 2 that you can share in the context of an assistant principal interview. Share a story about how you initiated and implemented positive change on your campus, in your community. And this is going to be important, because one of the things that is a principle that I have about being a leader is, when we identify what an organization needs, that we have the courage, and also we're given the opportunity to make and implement that change. One of the things that we always want to do as leaders is take an organization and lead it, and then create it and develop it and make it better than when we started there. So you want to have an organization, you want to leave it better than you found it, right? So at the end of the day, how do we leave an organization better than we found it? Well, as a leader, we want to implement and initiate positive change. So how do we do that? Well, again, our ability to tell a story about how we learn about these things, by opening ourselves up to be vulnerable, by opening ourselves up to conversation, by opening ourselves up to say that we may not know all the information, may not have all of the answers, but as a leader, I was willing to humble myself. I was willing to open myself up to make sure that the lines of communication up, down, and across the organization was open for me to hear. The context of this in an assistant principal interview is to tell a story about how you initiated and implemented a positive change within a department that you led, within a professional development opportunity, within a student achievement initiative, within a community-based initiative. But think through what it means to implement, what it means to initiate positive change. For what purpose? Share that as a story. Share that as an opportunity to talk about how you are dynamic, you're resilient, you are somebody who thinks through the organization's needs, the organization's priorities, the organization's wishes and desires. And then you want to be the person who can implement and initiate that change, and share stories of how you've done that in the past, how you've changed the dynamic on a team, how you've changed and implemented positive change within a grade level or department. These are the things that we're looking for, because now if you can do that and articulate that in the interview, we can then see that as an interview panel of how you'll initiate and implement the same types of changes for positivity and positive outcomes for us within our organization, potentially on a larger platform, outside of the classroom, outside of just one specific department, but now on a full campus level. So thinking through how you articulate, how you can initiate and implement positive change is another story that you should be weaving into your work and weaving into your interview responses. And that's personal story number 2. All right, before we move into personal story example number 3, share with us in the comments below what questions you have about building and shaping your personal stories that you'll share in your interview. Put those in the comments below. I'd love to help you explore how you develop your stories, how you put those together, how you articulate them within the interview process and within the interview framework. So share that within the comments below, and let's move to personal story example number 3. Okay, personal story example number 3, again for assistant principal interviews. And this one I saved for number 3 because I think it is the most powerful type of story that you can share, because it really moves away from the technical aspects of the job. It moves away from the technical accomplishments and achievements that maybe you've had, and it moves much, much more into the personal. So the third example of a personal story that you can and should use is a story that talks about overcoming challenges. This is the best way to personalize yourself. This is the best way to connect with people, because we're all human beings. We're all on this journey. We're all living life. We all have ups. We all have downs. We all have trials. We all have tribulations. We all go through stuff. And even though we go through stuff, our stories become our successes. Our challenges becomes our triumphs. The challenges that we face create the courage to help others, to lead others, to persevere and get through stuff. And so for you, thinking about ways to articulate and overcome challenges and share that as a story, how you came to be a leader, how you came to be an educator, how you came to get through the challenges of things that you grew up in, the environments, the city, the community, or just your own trials and tribulations of getting through the rigors of academics to get a degree, get a master's, get a credential, whatever that is. We as human beings live through people's stories and experiences, and we find connections. That's how we build relationships. And so the more vulnerable you're willing to be, this is all going to be to your level of comfort. But what I can tell you is that people who are willing to be vulnerable, people who are willing to be candid, people who are willing to share who they are, what they've experienced, where they've come from, I can then see their path forward for how they'll help our kids, how they will help build up our community and make it a better place, because your experiences help to build a community. It helps you find shared values. It helps you find common ground with other people. So if we don't know your stories, if we don't know what you've overcome, if we don't know what challenges you've experienced, how on earth do we know to connect with you? How do we know that you might be from our tribe? We might have the same lived experience. We could have gone through the same types of things. And now we've found that connection. And those types of things can turn us into just a candidate in a pool of people, but it can turn us into the fit for the family and the campus environment that we need, that we're looking for, that I am always looking for as a superintendent leader. I want people who are real human beings with real lived experiences, who are willing to share how those experiences have shaped them into being the best teacher, the best counselor, the best assistant principal, the best director, assistant superintendent, and superintendent. Those experiences shape us. So find ways to teach us and tell us about the trials and tribulations and things that you've overcome as barriers in your life. That is a powerful personal story. And I would encourage you to find your voice and find your opportunity to tell those types of stories, to build connections, real authentic connections with the panel, real authentic connections with who might be your next principal, real authentic connections with who might be your next superintendent. And that overcoming challenges is personal story example number 3. Use it, use it, use it. All right. So once again, share with us in the comments below. Tell us about a personal story and a personal challenge that you've overcome. These experiences that you can share, your willingness to even put them in the comments below will start to help you surface what those personal stories are. And then you can craft your stories around it. And the community will see what types of challenges that you're facing. We're all a community. We're building this up. We're growing this together. So share those stories and those comments with us below, because we want to know what your personal stories and what challenges you've overcome that are helping you go further faster as an educational leader. Now, I was only going to talk about 3, but I'm going to give one more bonus example of a story that I think is an important one to tell. And I think it is one that you can find ways to, again, weave into your assistant principal interview. And that is the concept of telling your leadership story. Now, this is different than overcoming personal challenges. You can weave in personal challenges into this particular story, but it really is about your leadership story, how you came to become a leader, why you wanted to become a leader, who inspired you to be a leader. Was it a former teacher, a former coach? Was it somebody in the community? Was it your mom? Was it your dad? Is it your spouse? Who has helped you shape your leadership story? And what have you experienced that created your opportunity to become a leader? Telling your leadership story is something that you can do in the context of an interview, but I also know that in many, many organizations, including all 3 organizations that I've served in over my 23-year career, we always ask people to share their leadership story. Because again, back to what I said earlier in the video, people learn, grow, and develop relationships and connections through personal stories. And the more we tell our personal stories and the more we tell our leadership journey, the more we find connective points within our team, within our school site, and within our communities. So tell your leadership story is another one. And this is one that all of us can tell because we all have had our different journey. Maybe you haven't had challenges. So that's an example, but maybe you haven't had a bunch of challenges, but you have a leadership story. You have some inspiration that created the opportunity for you now to lead. Tell that story. That's another great way to resonate with the staff and with the hiring committee and with your potential next principal. It is all about showcasing and highlighting who you are as a human being. When you enter the profession as an educational leader, you are given the opportunity to lead people, lead students, lead staff. And there are a set of skills that you really need to master. Some of them technical, but also some of them really kind of much more about hearts and minds and changing hearts and minds and mindsets. And so if you want to know more about how to shape your best answers and your best perspective to ace that next interview for assistant principal, check out this next video. And this is going to give you a ton of insights and a ton of opportunities to, again, impress that next principal, impress that hiring committee, and get that next job. I'm rooting for you. Continue to do well, continue to thrive. Check out this next video, and I'll see you in the next one.